My guy, Craig Steltz, joins us now. And Craig, before we get into the X's and O's, I've complained about not getting a haircut for a month, 6 weeks, whatever it's been. I don't even know. You're probably thriving right now. Like, you're laughing at everybody, just shaking your long, luscious hair just everywhere around.
I mean, it was a time. I remember you let your hair grow out a little bit, though.
Okay,
I've seen some pictures back in the day.
You're right.
You know?
Well, I mean, we played each other in the playoffs like all 4 years, so it's probably one of those times. But let's just say mine doesn't grow like yours grows. I don't look like Thor, okay? I look more like Sideshow Bob from The Simpsons.
Or Wooderson. Everybody's got a little transition phase they got to go through. So just keep the faith and keep pushing forward.
Yeah, we'll go with that. All right. I wanted to have you on because we had Bo Pelini on yesterday, and Steltzy, let me tell you, he has not missed a beat. Me and T-Bob were talking with him, and we were absolutely fired up, and every word that he said, we were hanging on it, and he's got that power about him. And I know that you, better than anybody else, because you were the leader of that 07 defense, you and Glenn Dorsey, and we've talked with Glenn about it. But what is it about Bo? I mean, every time Bo opened his mouth, I was locked in, and he's always had that ability.
You know, he's that term student of the game, and I don't know if you can relate it to as a coach, but he's that way. And, even though 12, 13 years ago from when we were at LSU to now, times have changed, offenses have evolved. He's continued to evolve with them and continue to just come up with defenses to almost attack the offense in a way where offenses are used to attacking defenses. So I'm excited. Hopefully, I wish we would have had some spring ball this year to kind of see him work with the guys and get back into that realm of LSU. But, hopefully things come back sooner or later.
Craig, Jordy Collada here from the mornings.
Hey, Jordy.
It's good to catch up with you. Hope everybody's safe with your family down there. He sounded a little offended yesterday when asked if he was boxed into a 4-3 defensive mind. He talked right back to T-Bob and saying, look, he's going to coach around the talent of the players on the field. Can you talk more into his scheme and how he will adjust that to the personnel?
Well, that's what separates, I think, the great coaches from the good coaches is the ability to take the talent that they have, take the guys that they have that they're coaching and fit them into a defense and make a defense to put them in positions to be successful instead of forcing guys into positions that they might not be comfortable, that might not be their strength. And, that's what separates guys is putting your players in positions to be successful. And if that means that he has to adapt to the guys that he has, that's what he's going to do. And I think that's what you saw what he did with a lot of guys when he was at LSU. Put guys in positions that they can attack and be successful.
Craig, one of the things I've always noticed about Bo's defense, he has an aggressive safety, and then he has a safety that he feels like can cover up for that aggressive safety. He's had LaRon Landry. LaRon had Jesse Daniels. When you were being aggressive and you were coming off the edge and doing different things, he had Curtis Taylor. And no matter what the safety was, he kind of always had a guy that could be the cover-up guy that he felt was a smart enough football player. And when I look at it, I think Jacoby Stevens is going to be that aggressive safety, and a Todd Harris, the guy that's been here for a long time, is going to be the cover-up guy. Even when you look in the NFL, Troy Polamalu, I've said this for weeks on weeks, was able to do what he was able to do because Ryan Clark covered him up, and they had a nice rapport. They had a good relationship. Do you think that Bo is going to have kind of the same mold, I'm going to have a safety. It's going to come off the edge, come with the middle of the defense, and I'm going to have that safety that I trust enough to be able to back him up?
I think what your two safeties is you got to have guys that almost can play both positions, that can adapt and make sure everybody's on the same page. I think that's where it comes into covering up the situation. Is if you have guys that are on the same page and knowing what the other guy's doing. When I was out there with LaRon and Curtis Taylor, and as long as everybody's on the same page on the back end and able to protect each other, that's where you limit the big plays. And that's what separates, I think, the great secondaries from the good ones is the guys that can limit the big plays. And a lot of times it's just making a tackle. A simple tackle limits a big play or limits a touchdown or limits an explosive play for an offense, and that play almost disappears immediately. But if that guy missed the tackle or doesn't stay over the top on a deep ball, then it's a touchdown, and that's the play everybody remembers. So my dad used to always tell me there's so many times that safety makes that tackle and just moves them to the next play. But that's an important play in each game.
Steltz, you got to love the fact that a former Rummel Raider is the best player on this team, huh? And Jamar Chase.
Don't get Steltzy started on the Rummel Raiders here.
How good is he?
Man, he's incredible. His ability to just to attack the football, and the way he moves his body and puts his body in position to make the catches, and just the contested balls. I mean, you know how good these defensive backs are and the schemes are with these defensive coordinators, but the amount of times that he went up when he was technically covered, you know, and times that as a defensive backs coach, you can't teach better technique, you can't put him in a better position, but when you have a guy of that talent who can make a play, you know, a great receiver with a great ball from as Burrow was throwing is almost indefendable. And so it's an impressive to see what he did last year, and looking forward to him to grow and continue that for next year.
Yeah, I was going to further on that point. When you watched that offense play last year, Steltz is a former defensive mind on the back end that was really kind of in charge of lining people up and seeing things before the snap. What did you see from that LSU offense? Why were they so potent?
The guys were making plays. We used to always look at it is when you look at X's O's on paper, at times, and kind of related to when I was in Chicago, we'd play the Minnesota Vikings. They would have an offensive play drawn up on the board. You know, we'd have the perfect call, and there'd be an unblacked guy in the hole to make the tackle. The only problem was that was Adrian Peterson running the football. Yeah. It wasn't, right. So even though you have the perfect defense drawn up, you still got to go out there and execute and make the tackle and make the play. And the same thing went for the defense that were going against our offense. You could draw it up and say, man, that's going to be a perfect defense right there if that play is called. You still got to go out there and defend a guy like Jamar Chase when Joe Burrow is putting the ball in the only spot that's catchable to his receiver. And at times it was almost, as a defensive coach, you just kind of scratched your head because these guys were executing so perfect.
All right, since Jordy already opened that door, I'll continue the Rummel Raider love. Christian Fulton is in this 2020 NFL draft. I feel like, I'll be honest with you, getting a little disrespected when it comes to the cornerback rankings, because at the latter part of last season, I mean, he was as shut down as you got in the country. And maybe it's because of the guy we just talked about. Jamar Chase made the other first-round corners look a little silly out there. But what do you think Christian Fulton is going to do in the NFL? How do you see it going for him upcoming next week in this draft? Do you think he gets into the first round?
I think he's got a chance. He had a tremendous year. And, even though, Stingley was getting a lot of talk and making some great plays, Fulton was locking down that side of the other side of the field. So at times a quiet game for him was a great game because he's in position each and play. He's doing his technique every play. And they might not be throwing the ball at him. They're testing the other side of the field. They're testing different trying to find different weaknesses on the defense, but he was doing his job week in and week out, and that's what you want from a cornerback. When a coach and a defensive guy like Pelini can say, "Hey, we got this side locked down, we got this corner covering that receiver," it allows you to work on so many other schemes and aspects and attack the offense in so many different ways.
All right, Craig, I want to ask you a high school football question before we get you out of here. And a lot of people within the state of Louisiana have been talking about the select, non-select. And I kind of joked earlier, but you and I were guys that were roommates at LSU. But before that, we did play each other each and every year in the high school playoffs. And I've long said that I think you're the best high school football player that I went against. And those were some great battles. And Louisiana's lost some of that with the select, non-select. Oh. Do you think that we'll ever get back to what it was? Because right now, man, I'll be honest with you, I am not a fan of what's going on in high school football in Louisiana. I feel like we're missing out on some of the best matchups.
I mean, there's so many great teams, and when we were coming up with Evangel and West Monroe and Hawnville and just so many great teams, and the ability to play each other, and like I said, the great games we had, up in Shreveport and down here in Metairie were just some great times. I hope they eventually get back to it, and just that way, as a competitor, as you and I are, you're playing the best teams. You're playing, across the state, and ultimately there's one state champion. And, I do put a little, how do I say this, is the last time there was everything together, you know who the state champions were.
What are you talking about?
It was the Rummel Raiders. So, I mean, I guess.
What are you talking about?
The phone went out. What'd you say?
Yeah, the phone broke up. Did you say of those times you were talking about when we were in high school? Oh, no. Oh, I missed that part.
Yeah. But I'm looking forward to the guys and being able to compete and these great teams that Rummel and Evangel and West Monroe and all these teams are having, able to compete against each other.
Right.
I'm looking forward to them getting back together.
I hope they do as well, man. Some of my best memories were some of those battles we had with you, and then you go play Luke Sanders in West Monroe the next week, and then you play Darius Reynard in Hahnville in the Superdome. It was some great times in high school football in Louisiana, and we know with the players that we have here, something Bo Pelini, I mentioned it earlier, talked about the guys that we have playing high school football in Louisiana are in our opinion, better than anywhere else. Steltzy, you're the man. I appreciate your time, brother. Keep growing that hair out.
Later, Steltz.
All right, y'all take care. Be safe.